One thing done well. Or the two reasons why programming seems scary sometimes. There are two road bumps when looking into programming at some depth. One is that being able to program everything feels like having no structure to anything, which will result in a blob rather than a program. When you take a class in college, you will generally be asked to create a blob, a mix of ideas that create an abomination window or a program that does a lot of stuff and none of it really makes sense in the end. The solution to this is to become an elitist. Raise your eyebrows and look down at mere mortals. And do one thing, and simply do it well. Not everything, just one thing. And this will give you all the necessary structure and clarity. A hypothetical example of such a thing would be not even a full window on the desktop, but a task tray pop-up, popped up by a program that scrapes your favorite news sites. You'd just copy somebody else's scraper until you are ready to code one yourself and focus on the pop-up code. So when a topic that you are interested in appears, you get a little pop-up in your tray. It can be that some website got hacked, for example, or it could be that one of your servers went down, even if just for a moment. Well, this certainly is one kind of news. There is very little complexity here. You are just doing one thing and doing it well. I actually have a real-world example for you. A beautiful and teeny tiny program called dat.gui, where the dot is not spelled out, but it's the actual period. It is just a little UI box, a kind of an input form that pops up in the top right corner of your web page. It's always the same corner and it's always the same box. This box will allow you to adjust something with sliders, checkboxes, and drop-downs. It could be enabling the dark mode for your web page, or it could be changing the opacity of the background image, something that is related to the web page that you are on. The program is often used when showing 3D demos. So here you're allowed to change rotation of an object, enable some features, show wireframe for example, or set some colors. It's one thing, just one thing, done well. A box that slides down in the upper right corner and lets you adjust something specific to the web page. Doing one thing well is an example of wild west programming. You set the rules, you decide what is right. No one may question you, and no one will, because your tiny program is simply complete. It is done well, because it is just one lightweight little thing. Beyond this is that second bump in the road. This is where you put your dirty cowboy hat away and put on a nice suit with belt and suspenders. And of course, I don't have to mention the pocket protector neatly tucked away behind the vest. The key word to entering this second zone is grok. I can't remember if grokking is from Stranger in Strange Land or Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. I'm sure it's not from Neuromancer or the wordy Cryptonomicon. Woe to House. I will let you listen to those and figure it out if you want to. To grok is to understand something so well that you become one with it. This whole grokking enchilada is a really big deal in programming. It is really something that will truly help you. Please understand that past Wild Wild West, everyone follows a small number of well-defined patterns. Some are recent, like the extremely costly to train large language models, and some are meant for desperate times when programming languages were still somewhat hokey. Fast, clean, sharp, yes, but to the point of somewhat bullying the coder a tiny bit. Be a good language, a coder would say, and the language would come around and goose them. And then the company would go out of business because their software was so buggy and so bloated that while it worked spectacularly, it would drain the phone battery like crazy and make browsers constantly hackable with buffer overflow exploits. Just now, one of those letter agencies mentioned, "Hey, have your memory managed for you while you are programming, please? Because doing it by hand introduces bugs." And by looking back, not at the language, but looking at the results of the language, they would say, the languages that pampered the programmer caused fewer arbitrary code execution exploits. The memory was just taken care of automatically. It matters not how powerful or beautiful the language, how advantageous it may really be in the moment. What really matters is that 30 years from now, the apps are still safe to run on all the gadgets that they will be installed on. Leaky memory problems prevent that from happening. They create a surface exploitable for 100 years. The patterns come from the old world. In fact, memory management, or automatic garbage collection and automatic memory allocation, is a programming pattern. It's not so much a feature of a language, it's just a programming pattern that is built into the language. Yeah. Most of the patterns come from the old world, but are made much cleaner and much prettier by the modern syntax and features of the current programming languages. It is not an easy task to bring them back from the old world, since they are bound to it. So, really, they kind of need to be reinvented from scratch, inspired by the old, but rewritten from zero. And would focus on untyped, memory-safe languages, like JavaScript. Now, don't say up until the moment he mentioned JavaScript, and certainly not when slinging TypeScript. Remember, embrace, extend, and shitificate and extinguish. That's the other gang of four. Stick to the mainstream. Do not deviate to bastard takes on a standard language. Atom Editor had a lot of CoffeeScript code, and to this day, even after it was abandoned, it is still disgusting. And it is really strange that it went from CoffeeScript to TypeScript. I'm actually using Pulsar Edit to write this. But I really just want to code my own editor away from all the browser nonsense, and even Electron. It would just be something that works in any browser engine. Though there's never time to sit down and do that. To clarify, an untyped language is a language where you don't have to strictly define your variables, where you don't have to specify how long the data in them is going to be. A language just needs to let you program without defining aspects of the variables that you are using. Again, in a strange twist of events, JavaScript, a language that lets you just program, has that TypeScript flavor where people put type information in it, completely altering the course of the language. Let me tell you something. TypeScript is not JavaScript. That code will end the moment TypeScript is abandoned the way Atom Editor got abandoned. If you keep to the center and stay with the JavaScript and learn all the design patterns, not just from the Gang of Four, but from all the good little ideas everywhere, you will neither be scared nor confused. You will not deviate far from all the most powerful patterns. Yes, you can code anything, but only what you code with the most powerful patterns in mind will last. By following the most powerful patterns, developing software or even frameworks is no longer scary. The patterns set everything up. They are like roads in the desert. Just like roads in the desert, the mechanisms behind these design patterns are so good, so well thought out by so many people, that it beats all the other ideas that were had by all the other programmers. You see how you smush that second bump in the road. Once you figure out what the patterns are, you'll just use the patterns and never be intimidated by the infinity of choice. And you learn about the patterns by looking at framework code, by looking at other people, by reading programming books, by just sticking to the communities of whatever programming language you do choose. And then just sprinkle in some do one thing, do it well, and you'll have yourself an application going.